welcome to our meeting of our Committee of the Entertainment and Facilities Committee. I'm here joined by Mr. Rue and Mr. Mitchell Farrell. Mr. Clerk, unless there's any objection, I'd like to take items 4 and 6 on consent. And I'd like to, also on item 3, I'd like to amend the motion to include the Bureau of Street Services as a department to report on the motion. Is there any objection? Okay,
No
great.
objection.
Thank you very much. Without objection, we will move those items forward. I do have 2 general public comments, which I'm going to take now. So with us is Mr. Ed Duffy for general public comments. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Hi, it's Ed Duffy with Teamsters.
Madam Chair, how much time would you like to put on?
1 minute.
Okay, I'll be very brief. It's Ed Duffy with Teamsters Local 399. There was a motion that was made a while ago in council about DOT no parking signs. It was a motion made by Mr. O'Farrell and Mr. Krikorian, and I just would request that it be heard because it's been since December. We spent a lot of time looking at ways this could be done. We went on tours of the facility where they make the signs. We went to where they actually print the signs. It was basically sort of promised that that would be moving forward, and then it just sort of disappeared.
Okay.
So we'd appreciate.
Certainly look into that as well.
Okay.
We'll make note of that.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
I appreciate it. Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you very much. Next general public comment speaker is Antonia Ramirez. Are you here? This is general public comment, Ms. Ramirez.
The pathetic and movie and entertainment industry have not only glamorized the drug booze world to all humanity, but they connivingly, deceitfully have bombarded the wetback and Chango Latino gangs as being cool and something of notoriety. Hell, they are made more important than Obama and Paul Krikorian. Maybe in part that's a good thing, but the truth is that we have a venomous, jealous, come caca, uncivilized, nosy, racist, hate-mongering wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbanger pussies who are the true domestic terrorists and have hijacked America and its American citizens. We no longer have safety and protection in America. We are under siege by these Chicano Latino assholes and enemy combatants. So that's why I'm voting for El Jefe, Donald Trump. Why don't you make a movie, a real movie, that denotes the true victims of America? They include United States military veterans and their families, gang-stalking victims, and their economic and physical, emotional hardship. And again, I guarantee the directors, you could make real movies involving true America. God bless Donald Trump in America and the military.
Ms. Ramirez, I took item number 3 on consent, but you filled out a card, so you want to speak to item 3. I'm just going to ask you to stay on the item, okay?
Okay.
Item 3, please.
One moment, let me see what, okay. I would say, oh, hell no. You mean the taxpayers are going to pony up the Department of Transportation Services to the film, television, and commercial productions? Are you kidding me? What the hell is going on? Did the movie industry, the film industry, the television industry, commercial productions, did they run out of money or trailer trucks? Our homeless military veterans and the homeless legal law-abiding citizens right here don't have these luxury items. So I say, hell no. What you should focus is how to provide adequate, accessible bus transportation services in and out of downtown LA when there is filming any day of the week by these entertainment industries. So the Los Angelinos don't feel stuck and or stranded in downtown LA. Furthermore, demand that both of the Department of Transportation and the film and movie industries hire military veterans, legal law-abiding citizens, and stop hiring these goddamn wetbacks and gangbangers. Give us a break. God bless Donald Trump and the United States military.
Hold on for just a second, Ms. Ramirez, because you also filled one for item 1, so we're going to move on to item 1. Mr. Clerk, can you please read that into the record?
Yes, item 1 is verbal report from Film LA relative to their 2016-17 priorities.
Okay, but before we do that, I also want to close general public comments. We had 2 cards. You spoke on item 3. Now you filled out a card for item 1, so you can go ahead and speak on that.
Thank you
item.
very much. Again, First Amendment, the beauty of a First Amendment. The entertainment industry is the umbrella to all offshoot titles, i.e. films, documentaries, drama, shows, theatrics, events, dance explorations, travel, sightseeing, etc. And I primarily speak to the big movie industries, i.e. Warner Brothers, Buena Vista Productions, Paramount Studios, et al. Stop glamorizing drugs and booze and gangs. Furthermore, why don't you do a real filming in Skid Row?
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I know you filled out cards for items 2 and 5, and I'll call you when we take up those items. Thank you. And so, Mr. Clerk, thank you very much for reading that into the record. We have members of the Film LA. Do you want to come forward to the table and introduce yourselves? You're coming alone?
Just me.
Okay. I see your stuff here.
Yeah.
And you're here to give us a verbal report on priorities for 2016, 2017.
Yes, thank you. I'm Paul Audley. I'm the president of Film LA. And it's time for us, as we begin our budget process, to reach out to our clients and to talk about where we see things heading, but also get some advice from you about where you would see priorities that we might set going forward. Clearly, the key function that we have is to do permitting in the most efficient way possible, to keep those fees down and to make things work smoothly between the city, the filmmakers, and their communities. But as we look at the year ahead, we know that we're going to have a great reduction in available revenue for many of the other parts of our business that we do. And so we're sort of reaching out to give you the opportunity to talk to us about perhaps where you see the things that should be at the top of our list as we go forward in setting our budget this year. I might sent out yesterday a long list of things that we've been doing, but just basically if we take some major key areas, some of the additional revenues that we have available have been used to make sure that we have not had to increase fees to the community, to the film industry. We use it for doing IT updates. In particular, our online permit system, which is unique in the world of permitting, constantly needs updating as either our clients or the community or the industry has new needs for that system, new demands on it for how we report. We're about to undertake about $1.5 million to $2 million overhaul of that system to bring it into GIS and other things that we've been asked to do. And so that's one of our key priorities as well. Community relations, we've been able to expand the number of people involved in that function. We now have 2 full-time people who are out in the field and 1 inside helping to coordinate in addition to the rest of the staff that works community relations in that area. It includes things like attending neighborhood council meetings, neighborhood functions, joining with your council offices at meetings in communities, HOA meetings and others, and being on site at filming when there are issues to be addressed. We've been marketing the city and the region for filming in several ways, mainly through things like the American Film Market and some of the other markets where filmmakers are present, where we can sell this region to them as a place to come and film and do a good job there. We're doing a great deal of outreach and education through publication of materials, through social media, websites, and presence in doing PSAs and other work along those lines. We've done a lot also to raise the profile of Los Angeles and its commitment to filming by being present at film festivals and to do a lot of work in sponsorships of organizations that are out doing the work. In addition to services to industry clients like the City of LA, where we do provide technology services, hardware as well to some of our partner agencies, and we do a lot of our own work in clerical support of our own work with the city. But some of the questions that we have in particular on all of these are, we certainly know that the key function of permitting remains the key part of what we do. But we do this work in ways that divide some of this up. For example, a lot of the work that we do in sponsoring and participating in film festivals and in organizations has to do with 2 different groups. One are established filmmakers, where we're reaching people who can make big budget decisions and who are able to keep work here. And the other is emerging filmmakers who we hope will stay, develop, and become part of the LA community. But what we know is that with what we're seeing in our forecast for budget for next year, that some of this work is going to cease. And so we're hoping that you will take some time, if not today, then over the next couple of weeks, to tell us your feelings about what would be the highest priorities from the city's point of view in the work that we're doing on your behalf out in the community. And so I'd be happy to take any questions or provide further detail if you'd like.
I can start, but can you just, what is your current budget? How much is it being spent on marketing Los Angeles as a film location?
It comes in several different places, but we're somewhere close to about $750,000 in that area. of doing marketing and advertising, sponsoring events where we have the ability to reach filmmakers, attend film markets, and that kind of thing.
Oh.
Advertising.
And what, do you mostly do it through advertising, or what are some of the examples that you,
So, as an
where you spend
example,
money?
we have a full presence at the American Film Market, which brings filmmakers from all over the world to Santa Monica. We're there for about 6 days at that booth, explaining what's available to them in Los Angeles, the programs that the city has, as well as the state tax credit program. We do advertising in major publications, for example, international locations. We've taken out advertising there to reach the world and tell them about what we have available and how to reach us. We get splashed on screens at things like New Filmmakers and the other film festivals where we're sponsored. A lot of the chambers that we work in, we're members of the board of several of the chambers in Los Angeles. We're either sponsors of or participants in a lot of their forums or their special events, where we have an opportunity to reach people as well. So it's done through all kinds of media, but also through PSAs and through presence at these various events around the region, but also at Sundance Film Festival, where we do a producer's brunch, where we actually bring key producers. Last year we had almost 200 of them in the room, where we could tell them about LA and why we want them to come.
And now that the state tax credit has been in effect for the past year or so, what are some of the production trends that you foresee in the immediate future?
Well, for the record, the expanded.
The expanded,
state
I was
tax
going to say
credit.
that, council member.
Stand corrected. The expanded tax
The
credit.
expanded
What are
credit,
the,
seeds
what
of
are
which
some of
were
the
sown
trends
when
that you see?
Councilmember Krikorian was,
Thank you.
was in the assembly. What we're seeing right now is certainly we've seen a major increase in dramatic television returning and staying in Los Angeles under the new program. There's a lot more
Television?
resources available. On the features side, we only really started seeing it in November because of the schedule of the new program. They didn't start applying until end of summer, and so they are now here. So we're seeing it. We're not going to see the major tent poles under this program, the massive films, because the cap is at $100 million of the budget. But we're seeing budgets of films that are larger than we've seen in the past. So we used to see them down in the $10, $15 million range a lot, and we're now seeing them in the 50 to 70 and 80 million coming back to LA under this program. We're hopeful that next year, when there's a full $330 million available under the new program, that we'll see even more of the film side return. But we expect to see the television side plateau at a much higher level than it was last year. That money, though, becomes constant, and so we won't continue to see an upward curve. But it's been very good news. As an example, a few weeks ago, we were talking to a major feature that came to do some pickup shots here, and said they couldn't find a soundstage because they're all full, which is great news because it's been a
Well, we're
decade
trying to build
since
one in
that-
my district.
I know,
There's been some constraints about that.
Yes, but we were there for that as well, as you know. So it's been good news. The other piece of it is we're seeing a lot more new media, which is sort of outside of the current tax credit, but a lot more things happening in the short format work being done by things like BuzzFeed and others is increasing greatly. That's outside of the tax credit, but it's an area we see increasing a lot in work. And we had a huge pilot season this year, which we haven't seen in a while either.
And what are your plans for new technology?
Most of the plan is in redoing our online permit system, or OPS. So we have to rewrite it because we've been doing all these add-ons for the past 5 years, and it's now fairly complex to make changes because of all the hooks and things. I don't do technology, but I know that's a problem. So the new one, though, will do several things. It'll merge our finance system into the online permit system, and it will also include GIS so that we're better able to do things using GIS mapping and coding in the system. In several places, as you're probably aware, this year we've been working to merge reservation systems with Rec and Parks and with the fire department. And we've been on a very, very, very long-term project with DOT on teams that has had difficulty continuing forward momentum because of staff changes, but we continue to work on that as well.
Members, do you have any other questions?
One quick follow-up, just on that last point. Staff changes at DOT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's great that you are increasing your presence at the film festivals and beyond LA to help market this wonderful sort of new embellished resource that we have. In terms of encouraging local films from the the entire production to stay local. I think you worked with my office a couple of years ago on a master permit for a film that was shot entirely in Los Angeles. And forgive me for not having the report that you sent in front of me, but are master permits one of the sort of options that you want to move forward with for?
We have that available, and it's not really affected by the question I'm asking today about
Okay.
these other resources outside. We consider that part of the key and core permit process that we do, so we anticipate continuing that.
Right.
But to your point about supporting, it's why we have things like we have a fellows program where through some of the emerging filmmakers projects, we award free permits to get them started and to encourage them to do their first films here. We sponsor a lot of things like new filmmakers, high school projects. There's some ghetto film school and BAFTAs schools which are in underrepresented areas that we help to support, in addition to being present and supporting some of the more established festivals and others where we have an opportunity to talk as well.
Right. It's all about making it as easy to film here as possible, which I think when we get to item 3, we'll talk about the city's larger role in making it easier to film here. But I think that your work in the last couple of years has really been great for encouraging that, and we want to be on board for that as well. And I'm so happy that television production is returning in significant numbers and really adding to the local economy. Several shows are now filming in the 13th that weren't before, and we want to keep them here for the entire run of the show. That's the ultimate goal. So however we can figure that out, then we'll really be onto something as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, actually. Thank you, Paul, for mentioning the work that you've been doing and trying to connect systems, your op system and Rec and Parks and Fire and DOT, which are among the highest priorities that we identified in the ad hoc for facilitating and making it easier for production companies to know the ground that they're working on. So when do you anticipate that job is going to be finished?
For those two, for Rec and Parks and Fire, I think we're looking at a July 1 conversion. Is that right? Okay. So a lot of it is depending on our ability to meet and move forward with the other departments. But do you have a projection now?
I would say probably closer to September.
Okay. So as we get the permissions and clearances from the city's side as well as our side to make that happen, it looks like September.
I don't think we have anybody from those departments here, right?
No, Fire's
Yep.
not here. Who else? Rec and Parks? No.
Mr. James, do you have any insight on behalf of, they're not your departments, but on that conversion to connect the systems? Do you have any insight from the departmental perspective about what we should be doing to maybe in the budget or otherwise to make sure that this gets done?
Let the record show that Commissioner Kevin James has joined our meeting.
And
Sorry, I didn't mean to
welcome, it's
overstep,
okay.
Madam Chair, but
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Councilman, just,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. We were just talking about connecting the Film LA online permitting system with Rec and Parks, Fire, and DOT. It's been a job that's been underway for a while. I really didn't mean to put you on the spot. Because there have been some staffing changes apparently in some of our departments, I was wondering if you might have any perspectives as we're going into the budget season. Are there things that we could be doing differently to help on our end? Because I want to hold Film LA accountable for getting this done, frankly. I expect this to be done. It should have been done. But I want to hold up our end as well and make sure that we're doing what we need to do. So
Before you go, I want to tell you that it's something we desire greatly.
I know you do.
But it's also something we initiated and volunteered to do with our resources because we saw the need for the industry and the city to do it. And so we continue to be committed to those resources to make it happen in our partnership with you.
my recollection, Councilman, is from the team's perspective, certainly from DOT, it's something that my sense from the department is that they're ready to go. Regarding Fire, I think we might need a little bit more time.
Okay.
And Rec and Parks, I don't know.
So Madam Chair, maybe
We're working with them constantly on it,
maybe we can bring this back at our next,
Yeah.
if we can agendize this item at our next,
With the
with the departments
Sure.
here from Rec and Parks, Fire, and DOT, and get a better perspective as to where they're at.
Thank
So we can get this done.
I would have thought that fire was ready to go if you'd asked me 24 hours ago. Well, maybe 36 hours ago, but I just had a conversation with the chief yesterday
Okay.
that made me think that, that we need to have the discussion.
Yeah, in all fairness, we should have them here, so
Yeah.
we should agendize this item for our next meeting.
I tend not to rely a lot on anecdotal stuff, but just I was hosting a shoot on my block last week, and the production company apparently knew where I lived, so they came to
Were
me.
were you in the film?
No. They
Cameo.
never want to use my house for some reason. But anyway, there was a little glitch because we were doing slurry sealing in my quadrant, and so they had all the street closures for slurry sealing that coincided with the, no parking restrictions for the shoot, and then they had to. Their shoot was delayed by a day, so that messed it up even further because the streets changed. So that coordination with
It's
with
very
DOT
important.
and with street services and with the rest of them,
Because right now, we're dependent on
Just
the
vital.
PWRS system, which not everybody inputs into.
yeah.
So and if we don't show the conflict.
Public
we-
Works Reservation System.
Right.
So if we could bring
Yeah,
that
we'll
back
definitely
another
bring
time,
that
Madam
back.
Chair, that would be helpful, I think.
You know, as we're increasing production in the city, you're going to run into situations where community people in neighborhoods might be a little grumpy about the interruption of their everyday lives. I remember I was here in downtown about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday on the intersection of Grand and Fifth, right where the Biltmore is at. I was actually going to speak at the Biltmore. They were shooting Training Day 2. I don't know whether they're going to remake the movie again, but Training Day was such a good movie. And there were some grumpy folks. I mean, I was excited to see the fact that they were shooting here, and I believe they were shooting here in the building as well sometime last week, same movie. So what are you doing in terms of, what are your hot spots in the city, and how do you go about, and you laugh because it's probably your district. You can film in my district anytime you want. But
You don't have
how
all.
do you deal with tracking all the complaints and possibly figuring out where your hot
Sure.
spots
So
are
we
in
do
that kind of
we do
situation?
several things. We do have what's called a remarks database, where anything that comes back to us, whether it's a response to a notice that we've put out or someone who has a complaint, gets entered. That's part of the ops overhaul to make that more researchable for us. But we are aware of the places. And for example, our two community relations staff are using their own GIS system separate from ops right now. And we can have them come when we do the other project on technology if you want. But they do things in the really busy neighborhoods that have an old-fashioned camera sitting on the houses that do more filming, flames for the neighbor that we know is going to be upset. And basically, when we're sending a film crew asked to go, we'll ask them to go and talk to the people we know who have issues to try to accommodate them. And so we have done everything from someone who just that one day needs parking in front of their house because their 80-year-old grandmother's coming, to make sure that that's coned off, to longer-term projects, which we frequently do with LAPD and council staff, with the neighborhood associations when it becomes a neighborhood like a Studio City, which is frequently filmed, or Hancock Park. And you're probably aware that over the years, the council office, the city attorney, Film LA, LAPD, and that neighborhood in some of these cases have created special conditions that are standard for those neighborhoods to try and deal with those that have more frequent filming, so that there's a different way of doing business there. And all of that is part of the system that we operate under. Surprisingly, we get very, very few complaints compared to the amount of filming that's going on. And almost all of those we're able to resolve. There are people who just don't want filming, and we can't help them, and we can't solve the problem. But in general, we spend a lot of time, and our community relations folk will go physically out and visit with them to talk to them and work it out. So it's been a pretty successful program, actually.
Yeah, last year they filmed one of the CI, is it CIS? CSI,
Yeah.
sorry. One of their explosion scenes was on my block. I must have received at least 3 personal visits.
From the crew?
From the crew.
Yeah.
Advising that the shooting was going to take place on such and such date, then the parking restrictions, and then they came back a third time just to make sure that everything was
Everything's
okay.
known. In particular, when it's bigger
actually
project
important.
like that, where there's going to be something that
I guess
LAPD
'cause it
calls
was an
raising public
explosion,
alarm.
or they're going to do night shoot. It was a night shoot.
Yeah.
They wanted to make
Maybe
sure.
they knew you were the council member too.
No, they did
No.
not.
No?
No.
Okay.
We don't tell them that. So
No, the crew didn't. The neighbors, of course, do. So I appreciated the heads up in case the neighbors.
Yeah. And
But they
LA
actually want to be in the movie.
and a lot of neighborhoods do. LAPD has us work whenever what they call anything that might cause public alarm.
Yeah.
We do a broader outreach program.
But I couldn't believe that I got 3 visits, 3 personal visits.
Good.
At my
That's what
doorstep.
we want.
So
I have to say, in my experience with Film LA, since you have utilized film monitors and your community relations people more and more in recent years, it's made a huge difference, and we appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, one other thing. Sort of the flip side of this, because you're right. I think all of us probably from time to time hear from constituents with complaints. But one of the things we had talked about during the ad hoc committee was surveying producers to find out what their complaints have been about us and see through Film LA what we can do better after each shoot. Have you been able to gather any kind of meaningful data on that yet? And
Excuse me, I think we're getting a little bit off topic.
well, we're talking about the priorities of Film LA and our recommendations of the priorities for Film LA. So this is one of my priorities.
So part of what we were asked to do, and we've begun to do for the city, has been more surveying. So under Philip Sokolowski's department, we have already developed customer surveys, which goes directly to the neighborhoods, and surveys to the people who are applying and doing filming in LA. That's a later piece. And Philip, do we have a timetable on being able to produce data from that one?
Can you come to the table so that the record can reflect who's speaking?
Sure. So I'm going to introduce you to Philip Sokolowski, who's my Vice President of Integrated Communications and is coordinating the survey efforts through his department. This is on the permit applicant side.
Oh, okay. The survey mechanism we installed that faces permit applicants has been running for all of 2015. And so we have a full year of data available under that program, which breaks out on an 8-question basis various satisfaction scores related to their experience working in the city and working with our office. So we do have detailed data to report on that particular aspect of our surveying program now.
Great. So that would
Great.
probably be appropriate as a follow-up agenda item, Madam Chair, if we can.
Agenda is that on as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, members? Well, that concludes
Thank
our
you.
presentation. Thank you, Mr. Ali, for coming, and all the Film LA crew, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
We look
Thank you.
forward to working with you guys. And that concludes, I have no cards, no additional cards, Mr. Clerk, on, under public comment for this item. So let's move on to item 2.
And prior to going to item number 2, would you like to reconsider items number 3, 4, and 5 now that Councilmember Krikorian is here?
Absolutely. So, Mr. Krikorian,
No objection.
I just had an amendment
Oh.
to item 3. I'd like to amend the motion to include the Bureau of Street Services as part of the department that's going to report back on the motion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's move on to item 2.
Item number 2 is a report from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to the extension of the existing contract with Film LA to include, to June 30th, 2016, to provide the city and Film LA with sufficient time to further discuss the technical issues and proposed revisions.
Okay, thank you. And I have one card. Ms. Ramirez, are you still here? Item 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Before you report on the extension of the existing contract with Film LA and all events in and around Music Center Grand Park, what you need to implement first and foremost is that when and if the Music Center Grand Park bathrooms are closed to the public due to filming and or events being held there, you need to first put a notice 24 hours or 72 hours in advance where it is highly visible by all visitors and or homeless individuals, where the Chango gangbangers and wetbacks won't take the notices down, and that the signs will say bathrooms closed for filming from date and time, and when it will reopen from date and time. In addition, portable potties provided from 5 a.m. to 12 midnight, with safety and privacy as an alternate place to the Music Center Grand Park. So again, so all individuals will have a place to utilize to go to the bathroom. It's unconscionable how these movie industries will at the last minute at 5 o'clock in the morning tell you at the Grand Park Central that there is no usage. You can't use the bathrooms. It's unconscionable.
Thank you, Ms.
Boycott the movie industry if they continue.
Thank you very much. Okay, so item number 2, who's here, who's going to provide a report here? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. The Film LA contract is up for renewal, and the city family has been working for a little while to try and figure out the amendments to the contract and addressing technical issues that are part of the contract. We had anticipated that we would be finished by April 30th, and we would be able to get that done. We need additional time in order to work through a few issues that remain on the table. And so we recommend an extension of the contract for through June 30th so that Film LA and the city can continue the conversation and get this wrapped up.
Great. Are there any questions, members?
Just
Mr. O'Farrell?
what are the technical issues?
I don't know that I should discuss contract negotiations.
Negotiations.
Yeah.
Got it.
Quick question. Is this the second extension?
This is the second or the third extension. There have been,
third?
yeah.
Is June 30th going to be enough time for you?
It needs to be enough time. We need to make sure that this is wrapped up. So we will do everything we can, yeah.
Any other questions? Mr.
Yeah,
Recorder?
I certainly respect your desire not to discuss specific negotiation terms in a public session. But on the other hand, the city council determines what terms should go into all contracts. And this committee and our council needs to provide direction to our staff in negotiating those contracts. So I'm only going to speak for myself so that we don't get into that. But one of the issues that's important to me is a clear resolution of how to utilize the unclaimed refunds of deposits that were spent that are put on deposit for city services for the city of Los Angeles. Because as we've discussed, and as we've discussed with Film LA, and I think as most people know, some of these refunds that go unclaimed accumulate, and they've been built into sort of the business plan, the business model, and the pricing structure and so on that Film LA utilizes. But these are monies that were deposited for the purpose of expenditure on public services by the city of Los Angeles. And so I will not feel comfortable in entering into a contract that doesn't specifically define how those funds are to be used. Because if they're not returned to the producer, they must be controlled by the city, as far as I'm concerned. So I would, and Mr. Audley provided a list of some of the ways that they are spent, and I agree that all of those are good purposes. But in my view, those funds should be spent on things that help the city of Los Angeles and its filming, specifically. Incentive programs for student films and small budget films, commercial production, things that aren't eligible for the state incentive, for example. Marketing, we had discussed the importance of marketing, and Mr. Audley spoke to some of those things, very important to me. And investment in systems improvement, the other things that we talked about. Those are the three things that I think help the city of Los Angeles, and that those monies deposited for the city's services should be spent on. I also think that we have to have clear provisions in the contract for how best to notify customers of the existence of those unclaimed deposits before they're utilized, and to give adequate time for producers to claim them or otherwise respond. There needs to be some kind of an annual plan for how those funds are to be spent. And I think that the expenditures of those funds, as public funds, needs to be subject to periodic audit by the city controller. So I think that is, with regard to unclaimed refunds, those are going to be things that are going to be important to me, that I'm going to expect to see in a contract that if it's going to get my support. The other thing that we touched upon a little bit in our discussion of priorities was keeping accurate records of complaints, and I think that is actually, in my perspective as an outsider, is that is dramatically improved. But I think it is important to be a part of the contract that Film LA keeps accurate records of complaints and provides us regularly with complaint data, records, background information, so that we can evaluate either what we're doing wrong or what obstacles there are that we can help to remedy, or so that we can identify where those problems are that Mr. Rue and Mr. O'Farrell both deal with a lot, and that our chair had discussed as well. And then the other issue is we've already discussed, and that's the OPS, but I think that's encompassed in what I've said. Now, my concern about continuing to provide extensions is that at some point you got to fish or cut bait. And at some point, if a contract is not going to work and we're not going to be able to enter into a meeting of the minds for a contract, we have to have a plan B, because I don't want to give an extension until June 30th, have somebody show up for a shoot on July 1st, and all of a sudden Film LA is not here. So I think it's important, if we're going to provide this extension, which I'm going to support, we also need to have a report back on what steps the city will need to take in order to replace Film LA services in the event that a contract is not approved.
Madam Chair, quick question. So once the contract is finalized, it will come to, it'll be released to us, right? So we'll know all the details, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and I thank Councilmember Krikorian for bringing this up. And actually, if I could, one additional thing, if you could focus on, because once the contract is done, I am going to look for this as well. I think I've got tremendous response from Film LA. They've done a great job in resolution. You know, I think Art Yoon is on my speed dial as well as all my staffs. So they've been very good. But you know how it is. It's always that one, you do it right 50 times, and the one time that that they don't, you know, that something goes wrong, that becomes an urban myth, and that it gets cited throughout, and every time it's like a telephone tree. When they tell each other neighbor, it becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So I'd love it if in the new contract, if they could have more attention towards not just the complaints, but the resolution driven, right? I think LA, Film LA, they said they had 2 staff. I don't know if 3 staff would solve it better, but if there could be more focus on that, because I mean, I have Hancock Park, Windsor Square, I have all those areas, and there was this one incident where the signs were posted on the wrong street. I mean, it's a mistake that could happen, but I got to tell you, that has taken urban myth proportions. So,
Would that
Yeah.
be would that be our problem?
Ye-
Sounds like a DOT
Right,
problem.
and that's
if we're
where,
posting
right, no, and that's
the
where I
signs in
think,
the wrong area.
Yeah.
Film LA.
right, no, but it reflects poorly on the whole, and I think what Madam Chair and Councilmember Corian talked about, that whole system. That's very important, right, with DOT and every other department being uniform. So, but when the complaints come in, so we could have as proper resolution as possible.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that's a good suggestion, and a reason to have the complaint data. One reason is to show the percentage of times that those complaints are resolved, because it is the vast majority of times.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about the urban mythology, and if we can demonstrate to the public a very high rate of success, and you know, Film LA and our employees, for the most part, go way above and beyond
Yeah.
the call of duty, as you cited yourself about, you know, when they come to your door. For the most part, they do that, and people need to know that they do that. But they're never going to know that if we're not gathering the data and doing the reporting and issuing that to council in a public way, so that we can be the public venue by which the public gets that information.
And for the record, I mean, majority of what my office works on with Film LA is more than satisfactory. It's just, and of course, the people. It's funny. It's anecdotally, the people who complain the most are actually in the film industry too.
Absolutely,
And
always.
they know
Always.
and because they know the industry so well, So they, but
Try shooting in Malibu.
There-
So I-
There are notorious stories about that.
yeah,
Well, they're
so
less forgiving.
Would you
right,
rather
because they
work
know
in LA or do you rather work in Georgia?
right.
make-
So
yeah, make a
we
point.
want to. I want to make sure that we're supportive of Film LA in the contract and give them the proper tools, or however whatever gets negotiated, that there is enough resources there.
And I sense you kind of got the memo that this is the last extension, more or less, right?
I think everyone's trying to get there, so
Yeah.
let's just,
Yes,
Get-
absolutely. And these are all comments within the scope of the issues that we've been addressing, and we are working toward a resolution on these.
Very good.
so if there are no, any further questions on this item, I'd like to move for approval.
No objections.
Thank you. And without objection,
Including my
including Mr.
request for the-
Krikorian's
Yeah,
request
thank you.
that he stated. Okay, so let's move on to item number 5, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 5 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to authorization to disperse a portion of the South Park Open Space Maintenance Program payments to Hope Street Family Center.
We have Mr. Romer here.
Good afternoon, Josh Romer with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. So the South Park Open Space Maintenance Program was established in 1989 by the former redevelopment agency. It was basically established to derive funds to maintain and operate park space in South Park, which previous to that time was an industrial area. Basically through the program, any property owner that engaged in a development agreement with CRA also provided an annual payment to fund the establishment and maintenance of parks in the area. So for the most part, these funds since 1989 have gone to Grand Hill Park, a significant park in the South Park area. It's about 2 acres. It's really one of the nicer parks in downtown LA. There's also another recreational facility called the Hope Street Family Center, formerly known as Venice Hope Park Project. It was a Prop K project. Also receives a portion of the funds. In December 2015, the city received Grand Hill Park from the CRA at no cost. In addition to receiving the park, we also received the rights to collect all of these funds through at least the 2050s, and so for some of these properties, it goes even beyond that. At that time, we received the authority to collect all the funds and disperse to Grand Hope Park, but didn't specifically give the clerk the rights to disperse a portion of the funds also to the Hope Street Family Center. So the items before you basically give the city clerk all the authority they need to collect the funds. It gives them additional assistance from the Office of the City Attorney and Office of Finance to make sure they can actually collect from the various developers and then to distribute to the 2 recreational facilities.
Okay, you also had requested an amendment to the report?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Have that?
So the requests that are suggested by the Office of the City Clerk read as follows. Basically, the first would be an amendment to the first recommendation to read, authorize the controller to create a new account entitled South Park Open Space Maintenance Program with separate accounts to receive payments for Grand Hope Park, Inc. and Hope Street Family Center Property Management, LLC. The second recommendation would be a new recommendation, number 6, which would be to request the City Attorney and the Office of Finance to assist in the collection of funds for the Grand Hope Park, Inc. and Hope Street Family Center Property Management, LLC, as referred by the Office of the City Clerk, inasmuch as the funds are for city property.
Are there any objections to that? Seeing none. Okay. Are there any questions, members? There are no questions, so if there are no objections, I'd like to move the report as amended.
So moved.
So, thank you very much. And we do have one card for this item, Ms. Ramirez. You filled out a card for item number 5, ma'am?
Again, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Madam Chair, excuse me. When you disperse any funds, it first belongs to the taxpayers and homeless people like me who are victims of gang stalking. We also put into the economy. So why are you subsidizing more goddamn nosy, jealous, racist, gome caca, wetbacks, and chango gangbanging pussies, pigs, and thieves? How much of that money is actually going to our military veterans that we are handing over to Hope Street Family? How much of that money truly is going to our military veterans and their families? That is a priority. I guarantee you there is not one military veteran housed or who is partaking of this fund money at the Home Street Family. I guarantee you there's not one. And that should be shameful. Really, again, I'm not going to stop pumping until our military veterans get housed, get money, and improve their lives. They deserve that. I'm not asking for me, I am asking for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. That concludes cards on this item, Mr. Clerk. Seeing no more items, I want to move that we adjourn our committee meeting. Thank you very much.